don't really see any windows of opportunity for him. I don't think he's gotten much better than he was when I fought him the first time, but I'm a lot better than when I fought him the first time.
Pop off, it's about to pop off, drop off, I tell you top off, drop off, I tell you
Welcome to a brand new episode of DC and RC. I'm Daniel Cormier. That's my boy, Super Bowl champion winning Ryan Clark in RC. I know you saw it. I know you saw the Nick Diaz Army, Nick Diaz sir. Academy at the beginning. Listen, this dude is an absolute star. He makes his return this weekend. We are going to discuss that later in the show. And also, we're going to talk about who is the all-time greatest BMFs in all of MMA. Hey, Ryan, not just UFC. I'm talking mixed martial arts completely. Who is that person that is a BMF?
Right.
In the truest sense in regards to
fighting. Excited. I'm excited this time
Mr.
that they won't let you cheat
ESPN. Me. Hey, well, we know the rules now, and we actually have somebody to kind of run the draft for us. But RC, Mr. Everything ESPN. I saw you yesterday on First Take. I saw you on Get Up, looking clean. Then I saw you on the bomber jacket was on point.
Appreciate
I saw you on First Take yesterday. The one thing that stood out most to me was you look like a baby. I mean, Stephen A. over 6, Michael Irvin over 6. You standing over there 5'11". I'm thinking to myself, did somebody pick up my boy Clark? Clark, they should have put you on the hip so that you was on their level, dog.
Hey, first off,
come on,
Hey,
Ryan.
First off, bro, ain't no putting me on the hip, man. It's just like baby. Nobody puts me in the corner. But I think they did that on purpose. You know, they wanted to make Michael Irvin Mondays. And obviously, it's now Stephen A.'s show. He makes a gazillion million dollars to do TV for ESPN. And I'm just little old RC, man. I'm just the co-host of DC and RC. And they even put your initials first. So I guess they figured they would just put me in the back. And now they got these dudes towering over me, looking all big. But here's the one thing I know, DC. If you put me on the field and you give me a small lane, I like myself. You throw me in the octagon with either of those two, I like myself. And so it don't matter how I look on camera, it's all good.
My boy, I'm telling you, I'm taking the odds, RC. I got your back, and I know you got game. And it's good to see you really working, my man. You're working very, very hard right now. And guess what? In terms of the debates, my boy's out there shining. It's not like you ain't out there really flexing on him over and over. So keep doing your thing, my guy. Ryan, last weekend we watched Anthony Smith fight against... I don't even remember the guy's name right now.
It's Ryan Spann. I just remember it because we got the same first name.
Ryan Spann. Ryan Spann. So Anthony Smith's fighting Ryan Spann, right? And before the fight, you and I talked about it. Ryan Spann's angry. Ryan Spann's a bit disrespectful. Ryan Spann is almost dismissive of Anthony Smith's career. Anthony Smith is a guy who's fought over 50 times in his life. He's done everything, bro. The guy's fought for the title. He's going up and down in weight classes. Goes out there, and honestly, Anthony Smith kind of made it look easy.
Very easy.
It was a non-event.
Yep.
He whitewashed. He washed out Ryan Spann. Ryan Spann's like flipping and flopping all over the place. Every time he gets hurt, every time he gets hit, he gets hurt. And then Anthony submits him. But after the fight, Anthony gets in his face. And Anthony yells at him. And Anthony's a little bit upset. And I tweet right away. I go, hey, I have no problem with it. Because when you talk the talk, you better be willing to walk the walk. And there don't need to be fake friends after the fight with people hugging and shaking hands. It's real for a guy like Anthony Smith. What did you make of the fight, but also the actions after the fight?
Listen, I love the fight. We talked about Anthony Smith now trying to get back to being a contender, a guy who's already fought John Jones for the title. And so if you're Anthony Smith, you understand when you're going against a guy who's not even in the top 10 and he's talking to you or talking about you as a has-been or as a non-factor, that is personal. And when you're in the fight game, it is personal. It's mano a mano. We are two individuals standing in the octagon, and only one of us walks out victorious. Nobody's fighting for a draw. We're not fighting to be friends. And so if you coming for me, then I have the right that if I go out, I do my job, especially do your job in the way Anthony Smith did his job. So you telling me every jab is going to wobble you, Ryan Spann? Every straight right is going to wobble you? You're going to throw a wild left hook, and when I catch you with the right hook, you drop? Then I pummel you, I submit you. I can do whatever I want to do. And for anyone who's watching this fight and goes, oh, that's not sportsmanship, or oh, they should hug and be friends. You know what I tell you? Go officiate in the NFL with this new soft taunting rule, where every time a dude who has worked all week, worked all his life to be in this position, makes a play, you throw a flag. The thing that I kept thinking about, though, seeing Anthony Smith after the fight, DC, and seeing his emotion and seeing that he had actual anger, does that affect you in the fight? When a guy like Ryan Spann talks about you and a guy like Ryan Spann makes it personal, can you get too amped up, or can you forget your game plan? Or is it hard to actually focus and execute that way? And then when you do execute, do you feel the right to get in their face and let them know about it?
Well, it's real, right? It's so real in regards to the emotion. Now, for me, I always fought better when I didn't try to let the emotions get too deep into the fight, because with Jones, it was bad. But Anthony Smith was well within his right. And, Ryan, you talked about the NFL taunting rule. Bro, it's crazy. But it's not even just NFL. Hey, Ryan, these dudes can't celebrate. They can't have fun. Ryan, my 10-year-old son, I let him watch the old school videos of the game, right? When y'all was playing, when y'all could dance on people.
Right.
My 10-year-old son has gotten his team 15 in 2 weeks in a row. My son's giving up 30 penalty yards because he's celebrating like Icky Woods.
Right.
Daniel's out there dancing because that's what football is supposed to be.
It is,
the
man.
league today, it's crazy how strict they are in regards to how people are acting. I'm glad that the UFC doesn't try to fall in line and penalize a guy for being emotional like Anthony Smith was on Saturday night. But honestly, the emotion comes from not only winning against a guy that you don't like, but if you go back and rewind a year, Anthony Smith was having some real trouble, not only inside the octagon with his fighting, but just truly trying to understand where his career was going.
Right.
So let's take it back a year, RC. And this is what Anthony Smith had to say after he lost to Alexander Rakic.
I don't know. I think I got some big decisions to make in my career and figure out where we go from here. You know, it's super frustrating to lose to a guy that you feel like you can beat. You know, once I got inside of the kicking range, I didn't feel like he was outboxing me. You know, the second round on, as far as the striking went, I felt fine. Once I adjusted the range, you know, I got to the clinch like I wanted to. I got to his body. It's just I wasn't able to finish a lot of those spots. So. I don't know. You know, 185 is still really tough. It's a total lifestyle change, and it's year round. You know, it's not like one of those things where I can just get into camp and change my diet and cut down. It's a complete lifestyle change, which is, you know, I guess that's one of the options. And you know, I guess the other option is to take some time off and get bigger. So I don't know. You know, I got some things to decide on.
You know, when you look at Anthony Smith here, right? He's very concerned, and he has a lot of questions, RC. But let me tell you why these questions were going through his head. Rakic, I'm sorry, I called him Rakic before, but Alexander Rakic is a prospect, right? And when you lose a championship fight and you have a young, hot guy on his way up the rankings, they will put you in front of him almost as a stepping stone. So when Anthony Smith loses this fight, he starts to see himself as maybe a bit of a gatekeeper.
Right.
You don't want that in your career. But then you lose to Rakic, and then they put you in there against Devin Clark, another guy who was doing good at the time, prospect. Beat him. Then they stick you in there with Jimmy Crute, who's supposed to be the man on his way up. You beat him. Then you put him in there with Ryan Spann, another young guy. You beat him. So Anthony Smith, who may have been thinking of himself as a gatekeeper a year ago, has now shut the door on 3 prospects. And that is why he was so emotional. Because when you start to lose to guys, it's not John Jones he's losing to anymore. You lose to a guy like Rockets, who you don't see as the man at the time, you start to question things. But he seems to have gotten it all right. And when you watch him in there, he's fighting with more confidence than I've ever seen Anthony Smith fight with.
No, he's absolutely fighting with more confidence, but you also have to think of where the timeline was at that point. DC, you lose to John Jones, you lose to Glover Teixeira, and then now you lose to Rakic. You're starting to think to yourself, am I even a championship contender at 205 anymore? And now when you start contemplating life, which is what he's doing, right? He's contemplating life like, maybe I need time off. Maybe I can't even compete at this weight anymore. That's difficult.
You know what, RC? And I'm glad you said that, because that is seeing guys in real time. I always say how fighting is the most naked you could be, right?
Right.
The emotions are on display. You see that with Anthony Smith right there, right? You've seen it in real time, a guy trying to make these decisions, because even though you lose a game, you're upset. You lose a fight, they still stick that camera in your face, and you're tasked with processing thoughts that you really can't do in that moment.
Yeah, see, and that's the hard part for me. It's not only that you're vulnerable in the sense that you're there for the world, but you just lost. You just lost the fight. And when I listened to what he was saying after the Rakic fight, here is what I hear. I actually made the adjustments I thought I needed to make to win. I was able to get within kicking range, because if you remember that fight, the leg kicks were very heavy early, right? The long range fighting was going in Alexander Rakic's way very early, and he felt like he changed that. So to feel like you make the adjustments, think you've made the changes that you need to make in order to win the fight, and in truth, the fight doesn't even become close, that's difficult. You start to question whether your talent level is good enough, whether your training is good enough, whether you can ever get back to the level that you once were. But what I hear after the Ryan Spann fight is a fighter that's confident in who he is, a fighter that feels like he's gotten his groove, and a fighter that can now look back at the Rakic fight and say, you know what? I kind of see what I did wrong there. I've corrected some things. I think it's time to get that opportunity again. And he knows that now we're both 2 top 5 fighters in this division. Oh, and by the way, the dude standing at the top of the light heavyweight division is no longer the king. It's no longer a guy that's run through everybody. It's no longer a legend. It's a guy who we know through his career has been very beatable. Here is my chance. And so I love this about fighting, is that you get to call out who you want. And like he said, hey, man, Merry Christmas to me, because it seems like Alexander Rakic wants to fight as well.
Yeah, he does. Rakic was immediately accepting of Anthony Smith. And that's what you got to do, right? When you get beat and you're on a downturn, you go back, you fix things, you get the ship going in the right direction, and you head back down the path of chasing down the championship. Now, what you don't see very often is a lot of people say, that last guy that beat me is the one that I want to beat in order to propel myself into that title opportunity. That seems as though it's crazy, right? You would seem to want to be away from that guy.
Right.
But that is what Anthony Smith is doing. But listen, man, this dude's an OG. Dude's an OG. Dude's fought over 50 times, and he's not even in his mid-30s yet. He's still early in his 30s. The dude is a savage, and he's an OG, and he's smart. I work with him at the desk at times, and Anthony Smith is a very smart guy in regards to fighting, breaking down fighting, and his team at Factory X is a very good team. Ryan, last weekend, the fights were great. The football was great. I mean, I had my iPad. I had my TV running. But I got to be honest, I had my NFL Sunday ticket, and I honestly would not be able to do all that without DirecTV.
Well, it's
Our
funny.
friends at DirecTV who are so solely. It's so funny that they are so solely in our corner. And Ryan, you have a message from our good friends over at DirecTV. And what do they have to say this week, my friend?
Hey, I sure do, brother. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows, you're watching sports highlights on your phones, and you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all that entertainment you love without the hassle. A great way to finally get your TV together. It's called Direct TV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with Direct TV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. Yep, that's directtv.com. Compatible devices required. Content varies per package. You know, DC, I'm glad you threw me that
RC.
that Direct TV read.
RC. Yeah. RC. I use DirecTV Stream. I'm on the stream. I didn't know what DirecTV Stream was until
you got
they started sponsoring the show. So I love the DirecTV Stream.
So you know what that means, DC? That more people need to sponsor the show because we will actually give you our money. You see how that works? Also, too, DC, I know you threw me this my DirecTV ad, and I appreciate it. But also, I'm starting to feel like you only tweet me when you have an issue with me. You know, I put out what I thought was a very intelligent tweet this week, and I said, you know what? I said, Jake Paul gets to box his opponents because of Conor McGregor. Silva, Belfort, Woodley, Ortiz, Askren all got an extra check because of Conor. When Conor stood across from the greatest boxer of his era, of our era, 50-0, Floyd Mayweather, I didn't tweet that, but I'm saying that now, he held his own, and he gave all of this credence. I said, love or hate it, you gotta respect it. And all of a sudden, DC, you come at me and you're like, well, and you're probably talking in your new warrior, I'm an actor voice. You were like, well, Ryan, though I agree somewhat, I also have to disagree. And I'm wondering, I'm like, why is DC talking to me in his actor voice on Twitter? So tell me, DC, where do you disagree with that?
Because I think that it's such a unique circumstance under which Conor McGregor got to fight Floyd Mayweather. It's Conor McGregor. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really lend itself to an actual Tyron Woodley. It just doesn't seem to be on the same scale, right? Conor can do anything. So when Conor started talking about fighting Floyd, I instantly thought it was a possibility, right? Instantly. I never questioned whether or not he would go in there. And there were a number of people that believed that he could win the fight. On the other side, Conor didn't necessarily hold his own against Floyd. That's where I wholeheartedly disagree. Okay. He went 9 rounds, but it was 8-0 in the 9th round when he got knocked out. So it's not like he held his own against Floyd Mayweather. But it's like, I know that impossible is not real with Conor McGregor. To watch Tyron Woodley fight a Jake Paul, that doesn't seem as far-fetched when Tyron Woodley is not in the UFC anymore, when Tyron Woodley is about to be 40, if not 40, has lost as many fights in a row as he's done, and many people thought Tyron Woodley was going to get beat by Jake Paul, whereas with Conor, he's in the UFC, he got the UFC's blessing to do it, and he went and fought the greatest fighter of all time, not our era. I think Floyd's the best boxer of all time. And Conor got to fight him as an amateur. How did this thing get sanctioned? How did this fight get sanctioned?
It got sanctioned. It got sanctioned because it was
50 boxers.
It got sanctioned because they were both stars, right? And I understand what you're saying, DC. This is what you're doing, DC. This is why they gave us a show together, because you're the fighter. You want to look at everything from an analytical fighting perspective, and you're always wrong. That's why they gave us a show, DC, so I can set you straight. What you got to say, bro? What
do you mean I'm always wrong? I'm absolutely right now, because the reality is, even people on the inside did not think that Tyron was going to fight and beat Jake Paul.
I know, but DC.
Conor got the UFC's blessing to go and do that, Ryan. It's a different deal. You're talking about a guy and guys that are outside of the company fighting in these fights. Vitor's not with the UFC no more. Anderson's not with the UFC no more. Tyron's not with the UFC no more. Askren's not with the UFC no more. Conor got to do this
DC.
while still under contract
DC.
with the UFC.
DC, nobody's talking about contracts, Mr. UFC, Mr. Two-division champ. Nobody's talking about that, DC. What I'm talking about is this, right? Before Conor McGregor crosses over, and everything that you said is correct in the sense that he got the UFC's blessing. Why? Because Conor McGregor stepping into that world brought more eyes to the UFC. It brought more eyes to MMA. I personally didn't think that Conor McGregor stood a chance, which he didn't. I understand that. And when I say held his own, I don't mean the fact that I ever thought Floyd was in trouble. What I meant was he looked the part. Even though all we've ever seen was Conor McGregor in Reebok tights, when putting on those shorts, putting on those boots, he looked the part in the ring. He even landed a great uppercut at one point, and you were like, oh my goodness, Conor McGregor landed a punch. So listen, so my point is this, right? Now, obviously, Jake Paul drives the entertainment. Jake Paul drives the brand. But we watch somebody like Ben Askren, who I know if I stand across from Ben Askren with gloves, I feel comfortable, right? We watch him go in the ring against Jake Paul because we say, you know what? We've seen MMA fighters cross over before. Anderson Silva, who's one of the greatest strikers of all time, gets the opportunity to fight Chavez Jr. And you know what I think to myself? It's Anderson Silva. If you watched him strike, you know that he can stand on his feet and throw hands. And what happens? He wins. And all of these people are getting these opportunities because we had a chance to watch Conor McGregor do it. I'm not saying that Conor McGregor went over there and could actually beat other boxers, but he stood across from Floyd Mayweather and we paid to see it. So now when these MMA guys are being called out to box, DC, we give it credence because we've seen it before. But where did we see it? We didn't see it until Conor McGregor stood across from the dude you said is the greatest. I am so upset with you. I'm so upset.
Why? Why are you upset with me? Why are you upset with me?
Because you're changing the argument.
Because I think Floyd's the greatest of all time?
No, because you're making this an organization argument. It's not that.
No, listen. How am I changing the argument? Look at me. You saw me just drop the top. Look at that. Hey, RC, I was up here. It looked like you got a little shorter. I don't know what happened. So look, I just dropped the top on you. I got to get myself real good. Like I dropped the top in order to finish this stuff. Ryan, I'm not changing the argument. I'm just telling you that I get it. I get that Conor did it at a bigger level, but we have seen what we haven't seen before. And what we haven't seen again is what Conor McGregor did. Is Conor still in the organization? What we have seen before and what we have seen again is guys like Anderson, Tyrant, Ben, who aren't in the organization go and fight somewhere else. For years, we've seen guys leave the UFC. Clay Collard has started a second career in boxing because he's not with the UFC anymore. What we have not seen, though, is a guy under contract, a guy that's a star in the octagon, go to boxing, fight a guy like Floyd Mayweather, and then go back to the octagon. That's the difference, Ryan. And that's where the disagreement was from me. Now, I get what you're saying. Oh, Conor made it possible. Well, Conor wasn't the first one to do this, Ryan. We've seen this for years, but we've seen only guys that are no longer under contract do it, not guys that are under contract doing it. So, Ryan, and with that, my friend, look at this. Look at this. You know this little thing right where they kind of do like, and I will drop my hand like that. I'll show you the sunroof of the bald head. And the argument has been won by Daniel Cormier.
DC,
everybody give me a hand.
DC, I feel like I'm not giving you a hand for that. You didn't just win the world title. You are still arguing something that I wasn't arguing, but you know what? It's okay, DC, because after this, if we get an opportunity, man, we can hang out, we can crack us open a nice Modelo, and we can finally be friends again. But speaking of Modelo, they're our friends too. They have the fighting spirit. I think you have an ad read.
I absolutely do it. I love the way you said we can go and crack one. But you know what, though, RC? You know what makes Modelo special? It's brewed for those with the fighting spirit. And what would you expect? Anything less. How could you expect anything less from the official beer of the UFC? Modelo was the underdog. It came from humble beginnings, and it never gave up. It's brewed from premium hops to create a crisp Pilsner-style lager, which set the standard for authentic Mexican beer. So, Ryan, the next time that you and I are sitting on your couch of your 20,000 square foot mansion watching the UFC fight card, we got to make sure that we've got the beer that's always in our corner. Modelo. It's brewed for those with the fighting spirit. Drink responsibly. Beer imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois. Now, RC, I would love to sit in your mansion, in the sunroom, and watch a UFC. But I'm going to be Octagon side on Saturday for UFC 266. 2 title fights and the return of Nick Diaz. Now, for reference, I'm going to say this. Nick Diaz has not been here for a long time. He has not fought since he fought Anderson Silva way back in the day.
Yep.
He has kind of gone away. But he stays a bit of an enigma like his brother. But the moment they show up, people tune in. Now, yesterday the countdown release on YouTube. Valentina Shevchenko fighting Lauren Murphy, 61,000 views. Volkanovski versus Ortega, 155,000 views. This is 24 hours. Nick Diaz, after 5 and 6 years away, versus Robbie Lawler 2, 935,000 views in 24 hours. The guy's an absolute star. And that is still the truth. But with all the time away, right?
Yep.
All the time away. Yesterday, somebody put something up like it's been 209 months. The 209,
Yep.
where Diaz from Stockton is from, since those guys fought the first time. 209 months, which is a crazy thing to think about. Now Diaz comes back after all this time away. The numbers show that people still care. But what are the expectations for a guy that's been away from this long, especially from your point, right? Where you remember Nick Diaz laying on the ground, grabbing his head against Anderson, doing his thing. What do you think you're going to see in Diaz this weekend when he returns to the octagon?
I think you're going to see the same old from the antics, right? You're going to see a guy who's willing to fight, a guy who's willing to taunt, someone who's going to stand across from his opponent and be in his face and be ready to go and make it an interesting fight and have a great time. But it's the skill set I'm looking for. I think people just don't remember that when we were talking about Nick Diaz back in the day, it was in the same conversations as, as the GSPs, the same conversations as the Carlos Condits, Natural Born Killers. He obviously had an opportunity to stand in the octagon with Anderson Silva. Nick Diaz was not only a star by by his fame or by his infamy or by the way that he brought people and his following. He was a star because of his skill set, right? Because he comes from a jiu-jitsu background, but he understood the stand-up game in a way that it was interesting, and he was an enigma inside the octagon. Will we still see that? He's going to be, by fight night, he's going to have been away from the octagon for 2,430 days. For just some reference, the 2 people that headlined the card that Robbie Lawler and Nick Diaz fought on first were Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz, bro. Like that's how long Nick Diaz has been in the game. And so I would actually, because you think about like Alden Smith, you think about Antonio Brown, you think about Josh Gordon, some of these guys who were great players who had long stints away from the game. None of those dudes were away for 5-6 years. So for you, DC, a dude who has been in the octagon at the championship level, fought the best fighters in the world, how do you think you could handle a 5-year layoff, 6-year layoff? And what do you think Nick Diaz will be like on Saturday night versus Robbie Lawler?
You know the difference between Nick Diaz and most people and guys like AB, right? Like AB doing his thing right now in Tampa.
Balling.
But like guys like those guys who are younger, right? They're so active. Diaz still does triathlons. Diaz is always working out. He's constantly running. He teaches jiu-jitsu, has his own academy. He's still so active that even in those 5 years, you got to think that Nick Diaz has been still learning and growing in the sport. He just has not been in a training camp. Whereas his brother still fought, Gil Melendez has still fought, Jake Shields has still fought. That whole original scrap pack, right? Cesar Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, what's up? Like those guys. Those guys all have still fought. So Nick has been around. And those guys are improving and getting better. So you'd imagine that Nick is not a guy that's been away for long like me. I've been away for 13, 14 months. But I feel different. I feel retired because I want to spend my time on the golf course. Whereas Nick Diaz spends his time doing triathlon. He spends his time on the bike. He spends his time in the jiu-jitsu room, in the mat room. He's not living the life of a retired fighter, even though he's away from the sport. So I kind of imagine that he's going to look pretty similar, and he got the right kind of matchup.
Right.
It's not like he was forced into one of the fights like it looked like he was going to get. Man, there were rumors of guys like Khamzat Chimaev calling him out. Guys like Neil Magny, guys fighting Kamaru Usman. Like, what are we doing here? We can't put him in there with those guys.
That's leading
put him
to
in there
the
with a guy
slaughter.
like Robbie Lawler. A guy he's fought before. Yep, a guy that is a former champion but has not looked great lately. You put him in there with the right type of matchup that not only can be competitive, but it also touches on that nostalgia, right, of a time where Nick Diaz and Robbie Lawler were two of the baddest men walking the face of planet Earth, right? And so you get that, and you get a very competitive fight. So I expect a good fight on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm excited for this fight. I mean, as excited, because when I think of Nick Diaz and Nate Diaz and Stockton, I just remember that Sons of Anarchy was set in a fictional place that was supposed to be right next to Stockton. And them dudes remind me of that so much. And so I just get excited even thinking about it. But when you talk about Nick Diaz's layoff, you can't talk about that without what he was taking that layoff for. And it was obviously marijuana use. And things have changed both in the NFL, obviously in the UFC, as it pertains to marijuana use. And, you know, we wanted to get a little bit more insight into that. So here's Jeff Nowitzki going to kind of bring us through how the UFC now sees marijuana use.
Marijuana is still prohibited in competition, but we're not going to use urine or blood excretion to measure that. The amount of THC that comes out in your urine has very little, if any, correlation with impairment of being under the influence or high on marijuana. When you look at, the historical dealing of marijuana, it's more of a social issue. Drugs are bad versus what anti-doping should be. Make sure the athlete doesn't have an advantage, or make sure the athlete's not harming themselves by being under the influence. The UFC's preference would be that our athletes not use any drugs and substances, none. So, this shouldn't be taken that the UFC is out advocating for our athletes to use marijuana. But the reality is our athletes, train hard, they compete hard. They're not like normal human beings and what they put their bodies through. And so many of them have conditions where they may need a drug or a substance to treat. You look at the pharmaceutical choices there, very highly addicted. And, I understand why some of these athletes make the decision that they prefer to go the route of marijuana to treat these things.
That, to me, that makes total sense. That is looking at marijuana use with some common sense, right? With a rational and logical mind. I remember when I was on the NFLPA executive board and we were talking with the NFL about raising the level of THC it took to get a positive test in the NFL.
This guy right here. Wait. This guy right here. My God, man. Oh, when I was on the NFLPA executive board, this dude right here, man. I just don't understand at times. Sometimes I look at you and I'm like, wow, this dude right here. Oh,
hey, man. Hey, DC.
Please continue.
DC, not all of us can be Olympian wrestlers. Not all of us can be 2 division champions. Some of us have to do some other things, and that was part of what I did. And at the time, marijuana use was something that was foreign to me, and not in the sense of I had never seen people do it. Like my homeboys and all that, they smoked marijuana, and all they would ever do, I never had an issue from them. They just ate my food and played video games. And so now when you look at the way it's being used in sport, I think of Sha'Carri Richardson, right? Sha'Carri Richardson lost her opportunity to be an Olympian because of marijuana use. And now to hear Jeff Nowitzki say, marijuana use, as long as you're not in a position to hurt yourself, as long as it's not putting you in a position to have some type of advantage as far as performance goes, that's what we're looking at. And I think about the NFL in that sense as well, them thinking to themselves, okay, we need to raise the level of THC it takes to get a positive test. And honestly, I'm gonna be honest, if you get popped for a positive test for marijuana in NFL, you're just stupid. You're stupid and you're undisciplined because they give you the dates within which you can be tested in. Because I think the world is starting to see marijuana use differently. Obviously, it's being legalized in so many different states. But also, when you think of the alternative, which we heard Jeff Nowitzki mention during that piece, the alternative is worse. The people that get addicted to opiates, the people who we see going into rehab for painkillers, the way that affects athletes after they retire. And so I'm so glad that now we're finally coming to a place to where we understand that this type of self-medication does not lead to destruction. It doesn't lead to the destruction of all individuals. It doesn't lead to the destruction of our sports. And so for Nick Diaz to get an opportunity to fight again, not only to me symbolizes his comeback as a fighter, but it also symbolizes the way that we have changed the view and perception of marijuana use.
Yeah, and it's showing the world is coming around, right? People, I can't believe they were treating these athletes for using marijuana, smoking, which generally you would think would mess with the cardio, in the same way they were treating athletes that were taking steroids. People were taking steroids and getting suspended for a year. Nick Diaz had originally like a 3 to 4 year suspension for marijuana. It was always ridiculous. It was always ridiculous, and I'm glad that the UFC has now understood that it was ridiculous. USADA is now treating it as if it was ridiculous, but you cannot do it in competition. So what that says is for a period of time before you go into the competition, you have got to stop. You got to lay off the weed. You got to lay off the marijuana. You got to lay off the brownies and whatever else you're doing to try to medicate yourself going into the fights, because they want you to not only be healthy and off of it, but also in shape and not put yourself at risk, to not be in tune with what's going on in the moment, right? Because anybody that's ever smoked or done anything knows that it slows you down and you're as calm and relaxed as you can be. So they don't want you to deal with that.
Yeah.
So take some time away from the marijuana in going into competition. It doesn't really affect the NFL as much, right? Because you're always in competition. You play every single week. You don't have time to not be in competition during the season. So you got to kind of lay off the marijuana during that time. But I'm glad that Nick is back. I'm excited to call the fight. And I cannot wait for the reaction that Nick Diaz is going to get when he hits the curtain in the T-Mobile Arena on Saturday. Now, RC, we love the show. We love doing the show. And we try to do fun things on the show. We did a draft a couple months ago, and I thought it was fun. But we had all the rules wrong because Corporate Jake was sleeping on the job. Dude's about to get married. He's got other things going on in his mind, right?
Yeah.
So he didn't explain the rules. So now what Corporate Jake is going to do is he's going to join us. And he's going to play moderator for our all-time BMF draft that starts right now. So Corporate Jake, would you please run the rules to them a little bit and then get the draft going?
All right, guys, so this week in honor of Nick Diaz returning, we are drafting MMA's all-time BMFs. The rules are as follows. Snake draft format, 5 rounds. Once a fighter is drafted, he or she is off the board, so that individual cannot be taken twice. At the end of the 5 rounds, you will each get 1 honorable mention, and that'll be a non-MMA fighter. So since Daniel went first the last time we did a draft, RC, it is your honor.
Well, I am first, and with the first pick of the BMF draft, Team Ryan Clark selects John Jones. Yes, thank you. Everybody clap. Everybody clap. Ooh. John Jones walked to the stage, chest bumped the commissioner. Boom. And listen, DC, here's why. When we're talking, let's talk about BMF. Chandler Jones, week 1 of the NFL season, had 5 sacks against the Tennessee Titans. Chandler Jones is a bad man. Guess what? Chandler Jones can't even beat up all of his brothers, right? Like at my house, I'm known as a bad man, right? It's for what I did in football. I can beat up my siblings. I would win that fight. Chandler Jones and Arthur, these guys are NFL players. They can't even beat up their brother because their brother is the baddest man to have ever lived. And you know what? I would not have selected John Jones first for the BMF. You know who made me select him, DC? And this is going to be crazy and wild to the world. You did.
Who?
You know why? You did. And here's how you made me select John Jones, the baddest man in the world, the BMF. Here's how. Cyril Gane. Great performance against Derek Lewis. I mean, he was light, like a lightweight on his feet, heavy punches like a heavyweight, finished like a menace. And then we're talking about Francis Ngannou. I watched Francis Ngannou walk through a lobby in Las Vegas, and I put my drink down because if he wanted it, he could have it. I felt like, Debo, you won, and I'm like, you what? I lost. You told me the only man in the world that could beat Cyril Gane was John Jones. Well, that makes him the baddest mother you know what in the world. With the #1 pick, that's my guy.
Okay.
All right, John Jones off the board. Daniel, your first pick.
All right. Well, Jones is off the board. In reality, I wasn't picking Jones ever. I mean, you can take Jones with all 5 of your picks for all I care about. I was not taking Jones. Now here's the thing. Team DC out of the war room. We step up and we go to Cameroon. Our Bati. We go to Bati and Africa. Mm-hmm. And we select the heavyweight champion of the world, Francis Ngannou. Because guess what? When you're the baddest man on the planet, you are a BMF. And that is exactly what the beast Francis Ngannou is. I saw Francis a couple weeks ago, Ryan, and he walked into me at the Apex, and he shook my hand, and he goes, all right, champion, I'm just working out, right? Big. I go, Francis, you're as big and strong as I've ever seen you. He goes, I'm big. I'm strong. He goes, DC, he goes, I'm eating good. I'm clean. He goes, I'm over 280. I go, but you're all muscle, Francis, and you are a bad boy. I'm taking Francis. Hey, maybe 2 weeks ago, before running into the baddest man on the planet, I may not have picked him at #1. But right now, after seeing Francis at 280-plus pounds of pure muscle, I'm taking Francis Ngannou as my #1 BMF walking God's green earth.
All right, that is the end of round 1.
You love that one.
That was good.
Oh, you love that one.
That was good.
Beginning of round 2. Daniel, you're up one more
You
time.
love that one. And as the rules go, I go second. And for me, Ryan, I got to listen. I know this might not ring for everyone, and they might not love the choice, but you know what? Actually, I'm going to save that guy for the 3rd round because I know you won't take him. So this one, since you want to kind of gut punch me with the John Jones thing, I know who your favorite fighter is, and he's usually everybody. He's your favorite fighter's favorite fighter. Okay, because we all watched him growing up. So I think you know where I'm going with this one. So we're going to San Luis Obispo, California, and we're taking the only BMF that held the championship when you think about BMFs. And he had the tattoo on the side of his head. He had the mohawk. He was in every commercial on television. He was world-renowned.
That hurt me.
And known for being a bad mother. And I'm going with the Iceman.
Golly.
Chuck Liddell at #2 for Team Cormier.
You know what you did there?
You like that?
You know what you did there? Because you went back to the last draft that we had, and you remember where I drafted him, so you knew where I was going. You've been studying your opponent. But as soon as Corporate Jake lets me know it's my turn again as the commissioner, I'm waiting on you, Roger Goodell. Come on, Roger.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. And with my second pick, I am right again. I select Amanda Nunes. And I know what you're going to say, DC. I know what you're going to say, DC. Oh, don't pick her. You know why? Because you were going to probably pick her because you're scared of her. And you're scared of her because she's a bad you-know-what. Amanda Nunes, she ain't lost since 2014. Amanda Nunes steps in with Cyborg, and it's not even a fight. Steps in with Ronda Rousey, and it's not even a fight. Holly Holm, not even a fight. We could go down the list, and she beats you any way she wants to. Oh, you're a great striker? I'll take you down. Oh, you're someone that wants to grapple? Well, catch these hands. Amanda Nunes can do it all, and she's been doing it all for years at the top of her game at 2 divisions. And so for me, #2 was an easy pick.
Could somebody, hey, Coach, Roger, Corporate Jake Roger, could you make him rap? I mean, could you make him rap?
I'm done.
He's still going.
I'm done.
He's still going. Could you make him rap?
That's right, because he now has his first pick of the 3rd round.
Now, with the third pick, so the first pick of the 3rd round, the thing about studying your opponent is knowing who they are. Ryan Clark selects Khabib Nurmagomedov. Undefeated, retired. Man, the man is so bad, he picked his submission with grace, vulnerability, and compassion. you know what? I'm not going to tap you out with an arm bar because your parents are here. Your parents are here, and I don't want to do that to you. I don't want to injure you in that way. So I'm just going to choke you out so you fall asleep, and then you can wake up. All I know is if we're having a tag team UFC match, DC, you're losing.
Daniel, your third overall pick?
That's pretty good. Okay, with the third pick, Daniel Cormier and Team DC. Now, I don't want this thing to turn into a full-on UFC draft. So with the third pick, since you take my favorite Russian, I'll take everybody else's favorite Russian, right? I'll take the guy
Don't you
that
do
did
it.
it before Khabib.
Don't you do
I'll take
it.
the guy that seemed unbeatable.
Don't you do
I
it.
take the guy
Please
that
don't.
when you put in MMA Mount Rushmore,
Please don't.
and you start to put champions, you might find Steve.
Tell me-
You'll find Joe.
tell me his name don't start with F.
You'll find myself, but there's gonna be another face on there.
Please don't tell me his name
You're
starts
gonna
with
see
F.
another face on there that people, it
Please
absolutely starts with an F.
Please don't.
And the last man's last name starts with an E.
No, it don't.
I'm going back to Russia.
No, please
to take
don't.
the second most famous Russian fighter of all time, Fedor Emelianenko. I'm taking Fedor Emelianenko.
I wish
the
your
guy
guys
that
could
won
zoom in on my
championships
notebook.
in Pride.
I have it on my...
The guy that won championships in Strikeforce or fought in the Strikeforce Grand Prix. The guy that made giants look like little men. I'm taking Fedor with the third pick on Team DC. Let's go.
DC, kick off round 4.
You like that one? Oh, and I get to go again. So here comes round 4. Look, man, when you talk about BMF, I'm taking the guy that coined the phrase. I'm taking the guy that coined the phrase, Ryan Clark, and I was going to take him in round 3 until you said Khabib. I'm going to take the man that owns a ranch that sports the name. Donald Cowboy Cerrone, the owner of the BMF Ranch. I mean, the whole BMF thing was started because of Cowboy. So Donald Cowboy Cerrone for Daniel Cormier in round number 4.
Okay, I like that pick.
You love that one.
I'm very
I know
upset.
you love that one.
Fedor was my next pick, and I'm very upset about that. When you started explaining who it was, I got a little nervous. So at number 4, I'm going Max Blessed Holloway. And here's why.
Oh God,
That
is my. Oh my God, I know what you're doing.
What am I doing?
I know what you're doing.
What am I doing? I'm picking guys.
I know what you're doing,
I'm picking
bro.
guys who are bad. And if you're a bad man, then you deserve to be on Team RC. Like, think about this, DC. This guy trained for his first few MMA fights by playing video games. Video games. I don't even know nothing. My hands are so official. I'm just going to play this video game that's not even real. Right? I'm going to go do that and then step in the octagon? Are you serious? Oh, by the way, as I get up in my career, as I'm facing these bad dudes, each and every opportunity in the octagon, I'm going to stop sparring. Oh my gosh. I'm not even going to really practice no more. I don't even need to get hit. I know how to get hit. I know how to hit people. I don't even need to spar no more. And at number 4, DC, you know what's crazy? It seems that your co-host has all the people you hate. Ain't that something? I guess we are moving on. Hey.
No.
Yes? Question? Okay, good. All right, moving on to 5. Can I move on to 5 now?
Yep, please kick off the 5th and final round.
Commissioner Goodell, kicking it off for the 5th and final round, RC now selects, and I know people are going to be like, this is weird. I don't really like this one. Diego Sanchez. Because to me, being a
Oh my God.
being a bad dude ain't got nothing to do with winning all the time. Because here's what's happening. If we're going to this fight, right, and it's a tag team fight, and we just want to put bad dudes out there. See, I'm not asking you to go out and be a champion. Sometimes you got to pick a dude who says, you know what, I'm going to let you punch me in the face. Right? So if we got a 5-on-5 fight, if we in the octagon, if it's a Royal Rumble UFC, Diego Sanchez is going to take like 28 punches for me. And now John, and now Max, and now Amanda, and now all the other people on my team can use their skill to win the fight. Think about it.
Daniel.
There's never been a fight you loved more than Clay and Diego. Never in life. Never.
Daniel, your 5th and final pick.
My 5th and final pick. You know what? This is My fifth and final pick, I want to pick the scrap pack. I want to pick the Nick Diaz Academy. I want Nick, I want Nate, I want Gilbert, and I want Jake Shields. So just put for my fifth pick, the Nick Diaz Academy. That's it. That's all I want for my fifth pick is the Nick Diaz Academy. It's fine. They're all one. They're all brothers. And if you remember, Ryan, when Jake Shields fought back in Tennessee for the Strikeforce Championship, Jason Mayhem Miller went into the octagon to try and fight with Jake Shields because he wanted the next middleweight championship fight. It became a brawl because the Nick Diaz Academy, you see it? The Nick Diaz Academy, Nick, Nate, Jake, Gil,
that's not
handled
the rules,
it in
DC.
the way that they do in Stockton, Lodi, South San Francisco. This is the group of guys.
DC, that's not the rules.
Hey, Ryan, they're one. They are one entity. Ryan, they are one entity. The Nick Diaz Academy
that's not the
with
rules,
the fifth
DC.
pick for Daniel Cormier.
That's not the rules.
What do you mean?
Jake, that's not the rules.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Let's go. Bonus pick time. It's time for our bonus pick.
Before we get to our honorable mention, here's just a recap. Round 1 for Daniel, Francis Ngannou. His team is Chuck Liddell, Fedor Emelianenko, Donald Cerrone, and Nick Diaz Army with an asterisk. Ryan Clark, first round, John Jones. Second round, Amanda Nunes. Third round, Khabib Nurmagomedov. Fourth round, Max Holloway. And fifth round, Diego Sanchez. Now, for honorable mention, Daniel, who is your honorable mention?
I'm saying the Nick Diaz Academy. It's the Nick Diaz Army. Oh, who's my honorable mention? Okay. My honorable mention, I'm going with the Detroit Piston Bad Boys. A collaboration
I like that.
of Bill Lane Beer. I'm going with Bill Lane Beer. I'm going with John Sally. I'm going with Dennis Rodman. I'm going with the Bad Boy Pistons who used to just beat the crap out of Michael Jordan. The front line of the Pistons.
First off,
for Daniel Cormier.
respect Michael Jordan.
1992. Before Jordan was able to break through.
You better respect Mike.
Jordan was able to break through. Before Jordan was able to break through, he could not get past the Pistons. They would beat him up. And those are some bad mother.
Okay, I got you. So since the game is changing, it's all good. Since we just get to pick groups of people, here's who I'm gonna pick. And you better write it. And Jake, I don't know. Okay. You better get the graphics people to work really hard. I'm going to take the Indiana Pacers, Malice in the Palace. Yes, they went to the same place that the Bad Boys Detroit Pistons played. I'm taking Ron Artest and Steven Jackson and Jermaine O'Neal because they weren't even playing at a time where you could do things like fight, and beat people up like they used to beat up Michael Jordan. But they just fought the fans. And here's who is walking them into the octagon. Leading out the Indiana Pacers to the octagon is one Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald is the Indiana Pacers security guard leading them out to the octagon. That's my team. I won. Jake, call me the winner, and RC, it's over.
RC.
You're welcome.
RC. On that. Look. On that, I give you the chest pat. The reality is I won the draft.
No way.
I won the draft. But today you did much better than you did in draft number 1. But with the Nick Diaz Army and the 92 Bad Boys on top of what I got, RC, I will be crowned the champion. So now we wait.
Your honorable mention team is basketball tough. My honorable mention team went into the stands to fight. Period. Let's continue the show.
Ryan, I figure... Since we've done this twice, in the first time, it was literally a 90% 10 vote in my favor. Let's let the fans decide. So fans, tweet and comment who had the BMF Draft Championship between Ryan Clark and I as we go forward. RC, it was good.
It was good.
I'm telling you, you're getting better.
I'm working on it.
You're getting better.
I'm working on it.
You're getting better in that regard. You're getting better. That was a pretty good draft. I mean, I'm trying to kind of figure out, Now, as we get forward to the draft, this is something you always say, right? This is your say. Tap in. Let's tap in.
Tap in.
Ryan's like, let's tap in.
We ain't tapping out.
Let's tap in, Jordan. Hey, Jordan Clark, let's tap in, Jordan Clark. Let's tap in Arizona State football. I mean, it's time to tap in UFC 266 edition, Ryan Clark. So here's the question. I can't choose. I can't pick. But I ask you this. Are the two best featherweights in the world fighting this weekend? You tapping in? Are you tapping out?
I'm tapping out.
These are the two best 145-pounders in the world.
I'm tapped out.
You tapping out?
I'm tapped out. The best 145-pounder in the world is on my BMF team, and that's blessed Max Holloway. Absolutely. And so between these two dudes, there's 39 fights. There's only 2 losses. Brian Ortega's loss is to Max Holloway. And if you ask a ton of people who were watching the last fight between Volkanovski and Max Holloway, many people believe that Max Holloway should have won that split decision over the champ the last time that they fought. When I watch Max Holloway go out and fight Qatar after fighting Volkanovski, I can't look at that dude when he's talking to y'all on side of the octagon while he's getting rights and lefts thrown at him, dodging him, then looking back, throwing hands and coming back to y'all. I can't say that that man's not the baddest 145-pounder in the world.
Blessed is a bad boy, man. Blessed Holloway is a bad boy. But the reality is this. For as many people that think Max won, me included, hey, stop trying to pin me against my boy Bless Holloway. He didn't win the fight.
Okay.
RC, he didn't win the fight. RC, he didn't get the decision.
Yep.
He didn't get the decision. So you look at these two dudes. You look at the way Volkanovski looked against Max. You look at the way that Brian Ortega looked against Korean Zombie. This Brian Ortega 2.0 is something serious. And for him to be fighting Volkanovski this weekend, great fight. I mean, and if you look at, it's hard to say that is the two best in the world whenever Max beat Brian Ortega in the way that he did. But this is a new Brian Ortega. And I'm confident that these two are going to show skills that represent the two best 145-pound fighters in the world. It's going to be a good fight, man. I cannot wait for this one. Now, here's the question. Next one. Valentina Shevchenko versus Lauren Murphy. RC, are you tapping in or are you tapping out that Lauren Murphy extends this fight and lasts the entire 5 rounds?
I'm tapping out. And listen, you know I'm about superstars, DC. And Valentina Shevchenko is a superstar. She even said it. Like, some of y'all been training like 7 years to do this. This is what my family does. This is a family business. I've been training to be this champion.
Her mom is the champ. Mom's the champ.
Exactly.
Her mom's the champ in kickboxing.
Exactly. That's my point. And so, yeah, you know, there's the Liz Carmouches, there's the Jennifer Myers who have, you know, found ways to stay in the fight. But think back to Jessica Andrade and what Valentina Shevchenko was able to do. I thought going into that fight, she's going to stay on her feet. She's going to stay outside. She's going to point her until she overwhelms her. That never happened. She took the fight to the ground. She showed that she's versatile enough and powerful enough, strong enough to beat you where you're strong. And so to think that, and listen, Lauren Murphy, this is not anything against you. This is Valentina Shevchenko, one of the greatest fighters in the world. Doesn't matter if you're male or female. This fight does not make it all 5 rounds. But speaking of tapping in and tapping out, do you get to have a choice here, DC? If this goes 5 rounds or not? Or do you
I don't because, well, here's the problem. I can't really say because it would be thought of as me picking the fight, and I'm not allowed to pick or any type of prediction going into the fight since I'm calling them.
I'll take that.
On the weeks that I'm off, I'm tapping
We're going to tap you and tap it out.
I'm tapping in or I'm tapping out. I'm tapping in. But one of the things about Valentina Shevchenko is that she is so special that she makes you ask these questions like, will someone survive? And I'm honestly going to tell you, when we sit next to the octagon after her fights, Rogan, myself, and Anik, we're sitting there wondering, like, who's going to challenge her? Because she's so skilled across the board. But Lauren Murphy has shown in this win streak that she has that she is as viable a challenger that Valentina has seen since she's been up at 125 pounds, or down to 125, coming down from bantamweight at 135. Now, last one, Ryan. Are you tapping in? Are you tapping out that the winner of Curtis Blades versus Jairzinho Rosenstrike should challenge Stipe Miocic, the former champion, greatest heavyweight of all time, in that fight would be considered a #1 contender fight for the winner of Cyril Gane and Francis Ngannou.
I think any fight Stipe is involved in now becomes that fight, because if he wins, I believe he deserves the championship opportunity. And if you're Blades of Rosenstrike, I'm tapping in that hell yeah you call out Stipe, because you understand what that means. You understand. Now, listen, I don't necessarily know if you want that smoke, but if you want an opportunity to fight for the championship, Stipe Miocic is the next stepping stone. This is a former champ, the greatest champ in heavyweight history in the UFC, who has been sitting idle waiting for another opportunity to fight, and it doesn't seem that the UFC is in any rush to give him another shot at the belt. So if I'm one of these guys, especially if I win impressively, that's the first name I say. Stipe Miocic is the answer to every question. So how do you feel you did in the fight, Ryan? Stipe Miocic. So how do you feel about the finish, Ryan? Stipe Miocic. So how do you... Everything I say is going to point me in the direction of getting that opportunity. But DC, do you think that these young men or that these fighters deserve an opportunity to fight Stipe Miocic if they win this fight?
You see what? You see, RC, that's the thing, right? It really is a tryout, right? These guys are trying out. Mm-hmm. Everybody at heavyweight right now, they're auditioning. They're auditioning for a chance to stand across the octagon from the greatest heavyweight of all time, in Stipe Miocic.
Right.
So not only are you tasked with winning a fight over a very tough guy, you're tasked with doing it impressively.
Yes.
Because I know Stipe, and I have dealt with Stipe over extended periods of time. He will not do anything that does not get him closer to the championship. He lives and breathes the heavyweight title. And if he's not getting that immediate rematch, he ain't going to fight somebody just for the sake of fighting them. He's got a ton of money. Mm-hmm. He lives in Ohio where they pay barely any taxes. Mm-hmm. The guy's he's insanely smart with his money.
Yes.
He doesn't need to fight. So Stipe will only fight for something that benefits him and ultimately gets him closer to his goal of becoming the heavyweight champion again. Now on Saturday we have 2 title fights. Mm-hmm. We got Ortega versus Volkanovski. Volkanovski versus Ortega. I do not want to piss off the champion. He gets enough disrespect, and it's not right that people disrespect Alexander the Great in the way that he does. And we also got Lauren Murphy versus Valentina Shevchenko. Mm-hmm. Which of those 2 title fights are you most intrigued by? Now, I understand that seems like a dumb question, right? Because you think that the male fight is going to be much more competitive. But when you start to have these great champions like Amanda and Valentina, you start to wonder, what can she do next to raise the bar? So that may elevate the entire title fight. So when you look at those 2 title fights, which one are you most intrigued by and looking forward to at UFC 266?
You know, I hate to be the guy that picks them in, but I think it is Valentina Shevchenko's dominance that makes that fight less interesting to me. Now, if she wins, then if Lauren Murphy wins, then I feel like I just watched Buster Douglas beat Mike Tyson all over again. And I still will have that same type of shock and disbelief. But when you look at Alexander Volkanovski and Brian Ortega, the records themselves say that this is a fight you should pay attention to. This is a fight you should be excited about. And if you watch The Ultimate Fighter and you see the tension that builds between these dudes, but also the difference in personality, right? The laid back, trash talker, slick back hair, coming in late, Brian Ortega, not really tripping on anything. And then Volkanovski, who takes everything serious.
He's Hollywood,
right?
Hollywood.
Exactly. So the difference between these 2 dudes and also the buildup and the tension of them having to be around each other through that process, you have to be excited about seeing this explode within the octagon. And so that's the fight I'm most looking forward to.
You know, when you go on The Ultimate Fighter and you go through the process and you're spending time with this person that you have to fight at the end of it, you don't want to do that. What you're there for are these kids, to try to elevate them, help them along the way on their careers. But you're also around a person that ultimately you're going to have to stand across the octagon with and try to rip their heads off. Mm-hmm. Now, you could tell that Brian Ortega is annoyed by the character of, Alexander Volkanovski is annoyed by the character of Brian Ortega.
Yes, he is.
He does not like a guy that's late. Mm-hmm. He does not like the Hollywood, the flash. Volk is as meat and potatoes as they come. This is a guy that weighed over 200 pounds and played rugby professionally, right? He doesn't worry about all the other stuff. And this is, you know, for him to have to spend the time with Brian, deal with falling behind so far on the show initially and then working his way back into the fight.
Right.
You saw him do that with Max Holloway. Lose the first 2 rounds, work himself back into the fight. It's a difference in attitudes. It's a difference in personality that's going to explode when they lock that octagon door on Saturday night.
Yeah, man.
You know, Ryan, every week, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
I just want to tell you, man, I just want to tell you, I get more and more excited for this show every week. But to me, when you have fights like we have on the card on Saturday, it makes this show that much more fun to do. To get an opportunity to see the Diaz Lawler, to see Volk and Ortega, Shevchenko, Murphy. This is the reason you sign up for ESPN Plus. This is the reason you give the money for the pay-per-views, because when belts are on the line and when pride is on the line, which we will see all of those things on the line on Saturday night, that's the reason you tune in to watch what is truly prize fighting.
It's prize fighting. And honestly, RC, this weekend in Vegas is going to be on fire. It's International Fight Week. We got the Hall of Fame on Thursday night. George St. Pierre,
GSP.
the greatest fighter, I believe, to ever go into the Hall of Fame. At this point, congratulations to him. The late Kevin Randleman gets inducted this weekend also. Guys, you can find the fights on ESPN Plus. Spend so much time. I'm going to spend so much time in Vegas, shaking hands, kissing babies. It's going to be fantastic. I cannot wait. You guys can get DC and RC wherever you find your podcast. You can get us on YouTube. Keep enjoying our content, and also keep enjoying us trying to entertain you. We will continue to raise the bar. And until next week, I'm DC. That's Ryan Clark, and we will see you next time.